I got another screener from My Dead Friend Zoe. It's a black comedy about an Afghanistan vet trying to help her hyper-independent grandpa so that she can have an excuse to ditch group therapy. All the while, she is haunted by the memory of her dead battle buddy, Zoe. Now, I'm a pacifist who believes that all sides of all wars are the bad guys, and I know that's a very hot take, so I know that I'm not the best person to give a review of this film. But considering this film was inspired by the director's friends, it's kind of a nice touch that a lot of the characters in VA therapy are played by actual veterans. And this movie plays with the medium of film in some really cool ways to create the character of Zoe. There's a scene where they play with the medium of film so hard that it basically becomes a horror movie. Even in the basic trailer sequence.
Be quiet.
Merritt. Everything okay?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a great way to show that Zoe isn't physically there. She is mentally there. The presence of Zoe is there. Is she a ghost? Is she a hallucination? Is she something altogether different? Is she a memory, perhaps? We don't know. We never figure out throughout the course of the film what Zoe is doing here, which honestly makes the movie work so much better. Because it's a great way to show the point is not what is literally happening. The point is that Zoe is the way the filmmakers are visually manifesting things. She is the way that the filmmakers are visually representing Sonequa Martin Green's character's guilt and her conscience and her memory of Zoe and the thought of not wanting to grow. I mean, almost every line Zoe has is, please don't grow.
Aren't we better than this woe is me? Ouchie, my feelings. Let's get out of here.
Be quiet.
You can't tell anyone.
I don't want you to grow. Please stay with me in this space where Zoe is kind of stuck. She's dead. She can never get better.
I can joke about the dead. These are my people.
Sonequa Martin Green's character, Merritt, is constantly trying to not grow. The entire movie is the refusal of the call. It's great. And because of that, there's this amazing moment right near the end where Merritt's character finally forgives herself for hurting Zoe, and finally lets go of the pain, and finally starts, mind you, to process her PTSD and her grief about Zoe. And that's the moment when she finally opens up in therapy. But before that can happen, while she's forgiving herself, Zoe tells her, if you do this, I will leave you, you will never see me again, and I will never forgive you. And Merritt replies, I know, but the real Zoe would have. And she lets go. And that's what makes it work so much better than Fight Club. Well, full disclosure, I just think Fight Club's twist sucks, and any movie that does Fight Club's twist is automatically better than Fight Club. But let's get into the nitty-gritty. Tyler, as a character, represents so many different things that are frankly so disparate that it is hard to recognize what he does actually represent. Tyler kind of represents everything. And when a character represents everything, they kind of represent nothing. Instead, Tyler is a protagonist of the film. He is, frankly, the antagonist of the film. And he doesn't just represent one core idea. No, in My Dead Friend Zoe, Zoe isn't a protagonist. She is unable to affect the story in any way. No, Zoe is simply a symbol. And because of that, she's a very clear symbol of one or two very specific things. She's a symbol of grief, of unwillingness to grow, and of PTSD. And all three of those things are so closely linked in this film that you can't have one of them without the other in this film. All of them are so closely linked that they're kind of all the same thing. And so because of that, Zoe can be a clear representation of one thing, and the film is making it clear that she is a representation. She is a metaphor. She is a symbol. She is not a character, unlike Tyler. I mean, the most agency Zoe can show is distracting Merritt for a few seconds. I mean, Merritt's on a date, and she's finally growing as a person and opening up and coming out of her shell, and then Zoe shows up in the background, and Merritt starts freaking out, and she leaves the date, and it's very obviously a PTSD episode, or at least a metaphor for PTSD. And because of that, Zoe doesn't need to have agency to affect the plot. She just has to represent the right thing so that Merritt can do what she needs to affect the plot. Because in that moment, Merritt runs away from the opportunity to grow, because Zoe, the symbol of unwillingness to grow, showed up and reminded her that she didn't want to grow. Also, we know Zoe is a symbol the entire time. We know she isn't literally there. Unlike in Fight Club, where we don't figure that out until 2/3 of the way through the film. For most of the film, we're not thinking about what Tyler represents, we're thinking about what Tyler is doing narratively. In My Dead Friend Zoe, we have no choice but to think about what Zoe represents, because she does nothing else but represent. This isn't a twist ending, this is the premise. Third, in My Dead Friend Zoe, it's not a stupid DID thing. I'm sorry, I really don't like Fight Club's approach to DID. A bunch of people keep commenting, what is DID? So, DID is dissociative identity disorder. It's the thing that we used to call split personalities or multiple personalities before we learned better and found out that not only is it not split personalities, it's not multiple personalities, but those are slurs. Yeah, we stopped calling it multiple personality disorder 30 years ago. And movies are still calling it multiple personality disorder, and they're still calling it split personalities. And therapists who specialize in DID are still calling it split personalities. It's been 30 years! The last time that a movie came out when it was still called split personalities was Mrs. Doubtfire. Sorry, reason why I bring up that rant is because if Jack and Tyler can switch who's in the body and who's in control, and they can see each other, and they can touch each other, and they can hurt each other, and they can throw something to each other over a fence, then what you have, functionally, narratively, is two different people in different bodies. Like, they're able to touch each other. They could kiss. Oh my gosh, they should kiss. They were roommates. Wait, I think that's actually part of the point of the book. That part of the book did not get adapted well enough into the movie. It did get adapted somewhat. I am rambling so hard. In My Dead Friend Zoe, it's not DID. Zoe doesn't, take over Merritt's body or anything like that. Zoe just exists. She shows up to annoy Merritt. And she shows up to give Merritt comfort and to make sure that Merritt never has to feel the pain. Because Zoe is still there in her heart. Literally. But Merritt has to feel the pain, and she has to let go. And that's another reason why it's so much better that it's not DID. In Fight Club, the only solution is to kill Tyler. Now, something you might not know about real-world DID is that getting rid of an alter, getting rid of what we used to call personalities, no, they're called alters, because these aren't just personalities. These aren't just personas that you put on and take off like a mask. These aren't just parts of you. These are different people living in the same body. It's like roommates. So in Fight Club, the only solution is to kill Tyler. And something you might not know about real-world DID is that alters are people. Getting rid of an alter, causing an alter to no longer exist, is killing a person. It's called murder. But with My Dead Friend Zoe, because it's not a DID thing, because it's just a hallucination or a symbol or a manifestation or a PTSD response or something else, Merritt can let go of Zoe without killing someone. No, Merritt can just let her go. And it's safe, and it's okay, and it's not a big problem like it would be in Fight Club or something like that. Yeah, I hate Fight Club. And the last reason why My Dead Friend Zoe works so much better than Fight Club is because no one else ever sees Zoe. They keep making a point of that throughout the film, that no one else can see Zoe, because Zoe is Merritt's problem. Zoe is Merritt's feelings, and Zoe is Merritt's hallucination, and Merritt's PTSD. She's not anyone else's. Nobody else gets a Zoe, because Merritt has to work through this not alone, actually. Merritt has to open up to other people to work through this. She has to build a support system, because before she goes to live with her grandpa and before the plot actually starts, Merritt's kind of just living alone and has nobody and does nothing and just lives with Zoe. And Zoe is the only thing she has. But by building a support system, by building friendships and community, Merritt realizes she doesn't need Zoe anymore. And she's able to let go. I will say it would have been really interesting if they had let somebody else see Zoe. It would have been a great way for example, her love interest to really come into her life and to understand her. Or maybe her grandpa, who also went through similar PTSD, to come into her life and understand her. Maybe if her grandpa was seeing the hallucinations of his dead battle buddy or something like that. That would have been really interesting. And it might have been a great way to drive home the themes of the movie. But I love they didn't. I love they made it clear that this is Merritt's issue for Merritt to work on. The only way for her to work on it is to open up to people who might not understand, but who are still willing to support her anyway. And speaking of people who do understand, the movie ends with recommendations for 3 organizations that have been vetted by the filmmakers that support veterans in times of crisis and suicide. 31 a day is too many. Any amount is too much, and we have too much. And hopefully that number will go down to 0. And I love this movie doesn't just bring awareness to that topic, it gives a call to action of something to do, to help, to support, to save. My Dead Friend Zoe comes to theaters February 28th. It is rated R for language, mild alcohol, drugs, and smoking, and moderate frightening and intense scenes. There is no post-credits scene. Follow me on YouTube, Blue Sky, and Patreon for more movie love. You can get these videos a week early and help fund my movie at patreon.com/moviesandheists. Special thanks to these patrons for helping to support my movie.